Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, ATD Painting, and Performance Food Group. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, senior care at its best with a family atmosphere. Obviously, if all seniors had the option, they would be living at home, but sometimes that isn't always possible. Well, guess what? That is where Texan Senior Residential Care Homes comes into the picture. Texan specializes in making its facilities as close to a home living experience as possible. I'm talking full living room, kitchen, dining room, cable TV, music, games, fireplace, you name it. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes has it. They've even got home cooked meals by experts. It's an extra throw-in. Not only that, there are no move-in fees, no visitation restrictions, so your loved ones are free to stop by and visit anytime they please. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes are located at I-635 and Marsh Lane in Dallas, right near Carrollton. For more info, you can call 469-400-7650. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. And now, let's podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I'm being joined by Kendrick Johnson, sports editor for the McKinney Courier-Gazette, as well as Brian Murphy, sports editor for the Frisco Enterprise, Little Elm Journal, and Salina Record. And gentlemen, let's preview some of the marquee games on tap for Week 2 of the high school football season. As was the case last week, we're going to focus the first part of this podcast on the reader-voted game of the week. We'll take a quick break, and then we will touch on a few more of the marquee matchups that are going to be within our coverage area. First off, thank you to everybody who voted in this week's Game of the Week poll. A lot of turnout for this one, 5 very worthy candidates. However, much like last week with Plano and Hebron, we had one game that really kind of separated itself from the pack early on and just left everybody else in the rearview mirror. I don't know what it is about the area of Rowlett, man. It was...
they love their Eagles.
I mean, last year, was one thing I was curious to kind of see, a year went by, just how if they still had the same kind of turnout, and yet it is still Week 2, it is Death, Taxes, and Rowlett showing out in just rolling to a victory in our Game of the Week poll. They didn't lose a single Game of the Week vote last year, and sure enough, they kept that momentum rolling. And they left no doubt. The game between Rowlett and Rockwall Friday 7:30 at Wilkerson Sanders Stadium out in Rockwall, that accounted for 2/3 of the votes in our Game of the Week poll. So hey, thanks to all the folks out in Rowlett who are showing out en masse to vote for this game, and it's a good game too. I mean, this is a rivalry that has been a pretty back and forth between two of the more consistent teams within the area. Rockwall leads the overall series 11-9, but Rowlett has had the recent edge. They've won 2 straight. Normally for a podcast like this where we talk a bit more about Rowlett, it would be great to have Devin Hassan here. He's the editor of the Rowlett Lakeshore Times. He is the end-all be-all for everything Rowlett Eagles, but Devin is on vacation, so in his place we got Kendrick, because Kendrick saw Rowlett last week. He saw them turn in a great debut to the 2018 season, where they went into McKinney ISD Stadium and spoiled a big game for McKinney Boyd. They just rolled past the Broncos 45-21. Kendrick, what were some initial impressions when you saw Rowlett doing its thing against Boyd last week?
One word: speed. Their speed. They have track speed on their team. It's ridiculous. But their execution was what really came out. The first 3 drives, 3 of the first 4 drives, they scored, and they would have scored on the one they didn't. Quarterback Chase Toupal got stripped at the 2, so they didn't score. But he made up for it. He threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for another, threw for 232. And they had Tonti Amos, who's like a grown man amongst boys, just literally trucking people and carrying them like Jerome Bettis style to the 1. And they gave Boyd all they could handle. But I think the main thing with them is going to see, can they do this on a week-to-week basis? Was this an anomaly, or was this going to be a week-to-week thing? Because there are a lot of question marks with the offense, but I don't think when you score 45 points, you got question marks.
And that was the weird thing about Rowlett last year. They were such a tough team to figure out during non-district. They began the year losing 24-10 to Louisville, a Louisville team that didn't make the playoffs, in its district. And then the following week was the big rivalry game against Rockwall, and they beat Rockwall 48-41. So just
that
in
team
1 week's time.
Highland Park, who won state.
Yeah, in just
pretty sure all of us picked Rockwall to win that week in week 2 on the picket line.
Oh yeah, I mean
none of us
Rowlett
even thought Rowlett had a chance.
Oh yeah, Rowlett just laid such a clunker against Louisville that, I mean, you just kind of got to go with what you know, but it just shows you just kind of how unpredictable these early season results can be, but then they have that huge win over Rockwall last year, but then they turn around and get run over by Plano 41-31. So it was such an inconsistent start for for Rowlett, and that's, I guess, one of the fascinating subplots. I mean, they have such a momentous win to begin the year. Now when they get to renew this rivalry against a Rockwall team that is, I'm guessing, fairly hungry to snap this 2-game drought that they've had against the Eagles. I mean, what kind of consistency are you going to get out of Rowlett?
Also, their defense is very underrated because every time they need a turnover or a big play, they showed up. Like I said, Chase Toupal fumbled at the 2. They ended up getting the fumble almost at the same exact spot from Boyd, their ensuing drive. It's like, who does that?
Oh, yeah.
And then Christian Ziegler, Boyd's quarterback, scores to make it 14-7. It's like, okay, we got a game late second quarter, and they kicked the ball. Well, I take that back. They did not kick it directly to him. They kicked it to the opposite return man, and they reversed it to Jerry Wesley. They muffed the reverse. He kicks it, picks it up, and it makes 4 people miss and goes 94 yards.
Wow.
And then you look up his Twitter, it says, I run a 4.39. I'm a 2-time state participant, and you can catch me in the end zone or in Austin on the track. I caught him in the end zone.
So he's the next Marquise Goodwin out of Rowlett.
He has potential.
I mean, you mentioned just the job that Rowlett's defense did. Kind of talk a bit about where did the strength come from on defense? Was it more up front? Was it in the secondary?
It was more up front because Boyd was 3 for 19, and they used 2 quarterbacks. That's a whole nother drama. But each quarterback neither one had time to throw. They were both throwing off back foot or having to be like Matthew Stafford and throw it sidearm. Okay. There was no clear looks. I think out of the whole 19 dropbacks, maybe 2 of them were clear looks.
Was it more of Boyd's offense struggling, or Rowlett's defense was just that good? Their front 4 was that good?
Well, the thing is, the offensive line was supposed to be the strength, so that's why a lot of them came back. That's why I was very surprised, because that was what all those guys paid last year. There's not like they were ushering a new line, so that's why I give Rowlett's defense more props, because going in, that was supposed to have been the strength of Boyd, was the offensive line. A lot of people 4 to 5 come back from last year. They struggled last year, but you couldn't tell because they were getting whooped up front all night long.
Yeah, that's very ironic because, Devin, listening to what he was, talking about Rowlett coming into the season, the defensive line was supposed to be the area that was, I guess, had the most question marks surrounding it last week. It was the secondary, led by guys like you mentioned, Jared Wesley, Cameron Miles, Lance Canyon. That area was supposed to be where a lot of the experience lied. It's going to be interesting just to see then, I mean, if they can replicate the effectiveness up front. I mean, they have to do whatever they can. If I'm just going to speak now from Rockwall's point of view, they've got to do whatever they can just to disrupt that connection between Jacob Clark and Jackson Smith, which is far and away the heartbeat of that Yellowjackets offense. If you've not heard of Jacob Clark, Jackson Smith, one of the most dynamic quarterback receiver duos in the area. I want to say Clark finished maybe second in the Metroplex in 6A in passing last season. He had 2,900 yards last year, 29 touchdowns. Jackson Smith had 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns.
That's what you call a go-to man.
They played 12 games last year. 8 of them he had at least 90 yards receiving.
I would say 2 points to point out. One, whoever wins this game, I would put money what's going to have to score over 40 points. You have to score 40 just to compete. And then 2, with the atmosphere at MIC Stadium, the grand opening and stuff, that was almost like a playoff-like atmosphere. I know this is a rivalry game, but you're not going to be playing in front of 10,000 crazy people that are coming to see you on a big stage. So Rowlett has gained experience in 1 week that a lot of people don't get throughout the whole year.
And Jackson Smith, the receiver for Rockwall, last year against Rowlett, he had 11 catches, 261 yards, 2 scores, and then he rushed for a touchdown as well. That kid's special.
Most weeks quarterbacks don't even eclipse 260 yards passing at the high school level. Yeah, that was his best game of the year last season. Then obviously, I mean, he was only a sophomore back then too, which is insane to think of now. Obviously, I don't know how heralded he was heading into that matchup, but obviously he's not going to be sneaking up on Rowlett if in fact he did last year. Yeah, you mentioned just kind of needing to score 40 points to get the win, and that really does kind of tie in with the recent history of this matchup. As I mentioned earlier, Rockwall leads the overall series 11-9. 9. But especially in recent years, you're basically getting a guaranteed shootout between these two teams. Over the last 6 meetings total, an average of 79 points have been scored in each game between Rowlett and Rockwall. So you're essentially getting an average of about 40 points apiece from them. So that just shows you just the high caliber of offense played between these two
40
teams.
points just to compete.
And last year's showdown was so close. Rockwall had 21 first downs, Rowlett had 20. They each had over 425 total yards. But just on paper, just looking on paper, the difference was Rockwall turned the ball over 3 times. Rowlett didn't. So I think if Rockwall just protects the football, I think Rockwall runs away with this one easily. Despite Rowlett looking really good in week 1.
I won't say easily. I got them winning.
I think Rockwall's still the better team.
Yeah, I think Rockwall's the better team this year. I got them winning. They're playing at home. But I can't say they run away with that. I'm not giving you a bulletin board, but
if they protect the football.
Send all emails to Brian Murphy.
All I'm saying is if Rowlett turns the ball over 3 times and Rockwall doesn't, if it's the other way around, I think Rockwall wins by 2 or 3 scores.
If Rockwall, two things that they'll need to do, I should say, is you mentioned turnovers. Yes, turnovers kind of got the better of them in their opener against Highland Park. Plus, they had a really slow start. And this was a weird game against Highland Park. They were down late in the second quarter, 28-7 to the Scots. And then in about 5 minutes of game time, they scored 28 points.
Wow.
And took a 35-28 lead.
Explosiveness.
With 7 minutes left in the third quarter, their star defensive back, Anthony Orjai, he's committed to Vanderbilt. He had a pick 6, but then Highland Park turns right around and scores 21 unanswered to pull away. So it was Highland Park won that game. What was it? 48-42. I want to say the final score was. But either way, still a solid showing on the whole. Considering Highland Park is no slouch. It's arguably the best team in all of Class 5A.
And then last year, to put things in context, they beat Highland Park for their only loss of the year, and then Highland Park went on to repeat as state champions. And I think they kind of had a letdown against Rowlett, so this might be good for them for this week in a weird way.
You mentioned it earlier that Rockwall is playing this game at its home stadium, Wilkerson Sanders Stadium, and that is one something worth noting that these past 2 meetings, the ones that Rowlett have won, they have both been at the Cotton Bowl as part of the Cotton Bowl Prep Showcase, so a neutral site, not the home field advantage that Rockwall figures to enjoy on Friday. So, gentlemen, where do we kind of lean on this one? We've spent some time just kind of laying a bit of a backstory to this one. Should be another shootout if recent history is any indication. So where did you guys fall on this matchup?
42-35, Rockwall Yellowjackets.
I don't have a score, but it's going to be somewhere, like you said, somewhere in the 40s maybe, or you said that. It's going to have to be a shootout of above 40.
Let's go 40 just to compete.
But I think Rockwall wins this game.
Yeah, I think you kind of got to defer to home field advantage in this, plus what just how potent that connection between, Jacob Clark, Jackson Smith is. Although, to be fair, it's not the short sight, what Chase Toupal and Jerry Evans did against Boyd, where, Evans had, 9 catches, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns. One thing that I remember, we were looking into this matchup and just the kind of the depth that Rowlett showcased.
They had 3 receivers that had over 5 catches. That's hard to do.
And that's something like if you look at, obviously Jackson Smith, just incredible in his own right. But here last week against Highland Park, here's just how reliant they were on him, at least as far as Jacob Clark was. He was responsible. First off, his line last week against Highland Park, he had 13 catches for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. He does this whole 200-plus receiving yards thing. Quite frankly,
I need him on my fantasy football team. If there was a high school fantasy football, I'd draft him in my first round.
So Clark finished the game 22 of 34, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns. So Jackson Smith was responsible for 60% of those completions, 78.5% of the passing yards, and both his touchdowns.
Wow.
So you factor in,
that's complete opposite. You had Jerry Evans with 9 for 136. He had the 2 big TDs. Trevon King had 6 catches for 61 yards. Antonio Hole, 5 catches for 37 yards. So it's an equal distribution.
Very different schools of thought coming from those.
What do you think is more dangerous? Having an elite superstar, 1 superstar receiver, or having 3 good high school receivers?
3 high school receivers, because Rowlett secondary is going to be ready to go at him. I can tell that.
I'm sure they probably don't want to have another 200-plus game being put upon them again by Jackson Smith. I think we're all in the camp of where we think the home field advantage should be. The slight slight edge in this matchup to give Rockwall the win. I do think it'll be a competitive game, another shootout, as has been the case in recent years. But nevertheless, should be a good one, a very worthy candidate of Game of the Week. And to lead up to that matchup, we had a chance to sit down and chat with Rowlett's star quarterback, Chase Toupal, as he outlined their big win last week against Boyd, looking ahead to Rockwall and more on the Eagles season. And we will get to see what Chase had to say after a word from the sponsor. Let's take a quick break to talk about ATD painting. Whether it's painting, staining, carpentry, residential, commercial, interior, exterior, if you need it painted, ATD Painting has got you covered. At ATD Painting, their goal is to provide a home improvement experience that is a great value, trouble-free, and enjoyable. And painting is really just kind of scratching the surface as to what these appointments entail. For ATD Painting's interior projects, things like painting, wall repair, ceiling repair, they'll make sure that your floors and furniture are protected and that everything is all cleaned up afterwards. For exterior projects, not only will they do the painting, but they will hand scrape loose paint, reattach loose boards, recalc windows or doors, plus much more. Not only that, if you visit their website right now, atdpainting.com, you can find a coupon for $200 off a complete exterior purchase. Once again, ATD Painting. They've got 4 locations in the Metroplex, including in Plano and Louisville. For more information, call 972-694-8888 or visit atdpainting.com. That is ATD Painting. Check it out to see just how affordable professional painting can be. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Kid Johnson on the Student Athlete Spotlight with Rowlett's Chase Toupal. Went 21 for 31, 290 and 2 touchdowns against Boyd. Congrats on the opening win. How was it to play at that $70 million Palace? Like, I live around the area, so people been talking about it, but to be up in there and be on the field, how was that to get that experience? 10,000 people too.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience playing in front of that many people at that big of a stadium, biggest stadium I've ever played at.
Was that kind of give y'all a little taste of what it's going to be like for the playoffs, you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Get some insight to everybody came in asking how's Chase Toupal going to do as the lead man under the bright lights. How's it feel to answer that bell in week 1 and let people know, like, hey, Rowlett don't have no problems at quarterback. We got this.
It feels good. A lot more. I have a lot more confidence in myself now, and I'm glad I was able to go out there and do it. Not leave a question mark.
I was have those first 3 series and come out and basically jump out on them. It was killing them.
Yeah, it felt good. It gave us a lot more confidence going into the rest of the game, knowing that we could drive down the field on them that easily if we wanted to. And I think it really helped our defense a lot too, seeing that we were doing good, and it helped the whole team just doing good the whole time.
So what's Coach been on to you about this week? Because minus a couple of missed throws, you played a flawless game other than that fumble down to 2. Y'all been talking about ball security and all that good stuff?
You said what did he think about it?
Yeah, what do you think about your performance?
He thought I did pretty good. I think he was happy with the way I played.
So fast forward to this week, another big game, Lake Ray Hubbard showdown against Rockwall. What do y'all have to do to get that W? Because going in, it seems like whoever wins the game is going to have to score 40-plus points. So y'all ready for that shootout that y'all probably going to have on your hands?
Oh, yeah. We just got to practice hard this week, lock in, study film real good. They're a good team.
With this being your first year as a starter, are you excited to be knowing that you're going to get some snaps and stuff in this big game after watching it and stuff last year? Last year's game was crazy, 48-41.
Oh, yeah.
And I pulled out in the end. So how's it feel to know you're going to be a part of it this year?
Yeah,
full hands on deck.
Yeah, watching it last year was tough seeing all that fun happening because I was just sitting on the sideline. I'm glad to be a part of it this year.
How big a deal is y'all running game going to be? Because your running back, he was a monster last week. It seemed like when they started kind of catching on to that quick game, y'all were hitting him with that, and he was just ragdolling dudes. Literally, like I was telling the guys on the podcast, how he was like, he did the one run, he literally carried him down to the 1 after he trucked that guy.
Yeah, he's been a big part of our team since freshman year. We use him a lot, and so I think he's going to be a pretty big part in the game on Friday as well.
How much confidence gets you know that 9 times out of 10, regardless of y'all can play Allen, that at least y'all have advantage in speed? How big a deal is that for y'all game? Because y'all got some dudes that can fly, like track fly on your offense.
That's good when it comes to receivers running routes and stuff, one-on-ones. I mean, it's always good to have speed, so always gives you an advantage.
Does it give you extra motivation that people think coming in the season? A lot of people are like, well, that's going to be okay. They not talking about you like they usually do. You got any motivation? Y'all even talk about that?
Oh, yeah, it gives a lot of motivation for sure. We want to prove people wrong, show them that we can be a playoff or a state contender and be up there with teams like Allen and Duncanville and DeSoto and teams like that.
Oh, you want to see everybody. You want to see the big boys.
Yeah.
Does it give y'all confidence to know that y'all could even play even better, minus the penalties or turnover here and there, and y'all still put up 45 points despite the mistakes?
For sure. Even I missed a couple throws that would have been touchdowns easily. So, I mean, like I said, we just need to watch film, study, do what we bring it onto the field at practice, and then carry it over to the game. So I think we'll be good.
How big a deal is the fact that y'all getting all this quality experience on the road? Y'all ain't even step foot at HBJ where y'all very comfortable at. Y'all playing these games on the road as if y'all going to do in the playoffs. So how big a deal will that be going forward to know that y'all can take y'all game any place, anywhere? Y'all game travels, as they say.
I don't really think it's a big deal playing away. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I like playing at home for sure just because it's home, but playing away doesn't bother me. But knowing that we can perform the same at home as we do away give us a lot more confidence.
And going forward for Friday, what's going to be 3 keys that the Rowlett Eagles have to do to bring home that dub?
Stay locked in, know your assignment, and play hard.
Do you think that speed going to be a factor again on Friday?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Is there any smack talking going on social media? The fact that y'all like, they're literally right across the lake, like literally. So y'all know any of those kids are just kind of like, y'all over here and they on their end of the lake?
Well, the past couple of years there has been. I haven't seen a lot this year, but there probably will be some later on in the week, maybe tomorrow or Friday.
It's still early.
Yeah, it's still early.
Check out this man, Chase Toupal, quarterback of the Rowlett Eagles, 1-0, trying to make it 2-0 against Rockwall. A lot of people are talking about this game. It's going to be our game of the week. This man going to be in the spotlight in the center. Check him out. Thanks for your time, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks again to Chase for taking the time to chat for our Student Athlete Spotlight, highlighting our game of the week for week 2 of the high school football season, Rockwall versus Rowlett. The Lake Ray Hubbard rivalry renewed Friday, 7:30 p.m. out in Rockwall at Wilkerson Sanders Stadium. That's not the only big game that we have going on this week. We got a few others on tap, so let's break down a few other marquee matchups within our coverage area. Brian, let's start with the game that you're actually going to be at. This game's later tonight, Thursday, 7 o'clock out at the Star. A matchup between maybe the best team in Frisco this year. Who knows? We'll have no way of knowing because they play in a different classification from the rest of the Frisco ISD heavyweights.
There's still a team called Lone Star out there.
Hey, just saying. Frisco Reedy as they look to continue their strong start to the season against the Colony, another team coming off an impressive start. Brian, you'll be at this game. Just talk a little bit about what you're anxious to see tonight and your prediction for this one.
I'm anxious to see the 2 running backs that the Colony have, Abdallah and Miles Price. I saw them play last year when they played Little Elm. Man, Miles Price is electric.
But he's not even a running back. He's a running back. He's a receiver. They even have him throw the ball. He had 3 pass attempts last year. He plays DB.
Yeah.
He ran back a kickoff last week. I saw him run a kickoff that was basically over 100 yards last year if he goes sideline. He went sideline to sideline and then went up. It went down to 75. He got tackled at the 2.
Yeah.
It was probably like 130 yards against North. Got to go see him play. Matt can tell you my predictions. Last week was Kyron Cumming. This week is Miles Price, one of the top 2020 players in the state.
You know, over 100 rushing yards, over 100 receiving yards. He only had 4 carries for 117 yards last week.
Explosive.
He had 5 touchdowns.
Pretty solid per carry average.
He had a kickoff. What else he had?
Oh, he had a kickoff for power touchdown.
He had 6 total touchdowns. Yes, in all 3.
So
rushing, receiving, and special teams.
But you don't just have to worry about him. You have to worry about Jaden Abdallah.
Yeah.
He's the bell cow of that team. 25 carries. Oh, he had over 200 yards himself in that game. So I don't know if that was a high scoring game. 62-49. I'm not expecting something that crazy tonight. I think Reedy's defense is a lot better than North Crowley's, but if you want to beat the Colony, you got to slow down those 2 guys, or at least one of them, and that's tough. Miles Price, he's one of the most electric players, in the state.
And that's not to shortchange Mikey Harrington. It was, he got kind of thrown to the wolves last year, having to fill in for Jamel Jones Jr. due to injury at the start of the season, and he's now got a whole year under his belt. But yeah, I guess so. Looking at this matchup with Reedy, what they did last week against Plano West, that's so fresh in my mind as far as like how much of that was just Reedy being this potential this front runner for the 7-5A Division II District Championship. How much of it was Plano West going through a bit of a rough patch in their program's development? I don't know, but it was very resounding when you go up and you're up 41-6.
Call the dogs off
At halftime over the second largest school in Texas.
A lot of people I've spoken to, a lot of coaches I've spoken to around the area, they were surprised at this outcome, and I wasn't. I know Reedy, I've been picking them all summer to win that district. They have less than 2,000 students. Plano West has, over 5,000.
Close to 6.
That's insane. Yeah. But they're just not a football program right now. No offense to Plano West. And I knew Reedy, they're a special team. I think not only are they going to win their first playoff game ever, but I think they can make a run up 3 rounds deep this year. They have that potential to go at least 2 to 3 rounds deep in the playoffs. Josh Foskey, when you have a third-year starter at quarterback, you have the major advantage in this one. So you have the upper hand on that on Harrington. You had a guy named Michael Ferreira who wasn't really a player last year. Didn't really see the field that much as a junior. He had 80 yards, a couple scores for Reedy. He came on the scene filling in for Justin Gibson, who graduated. You have Nolan Matthews, big target going to Arizona State. Reedy, they're a really special team, and they can protect the football just like we said about Rockwall. I think they can beat the Colony by a couple of scores and I won't be surprised by it.
The big picture, do you think they will be Lone Star?
No.
We'll never know. Yeah, we'll never know.
They won't play like
D1 versus D2. Yeah, we'll never know.
I thought they could play in the playoffs.
Last year, I thought it was going to be a close game when they met late in the district season, and Lone Star just ran away. It was close the first half, but Lone Star was the better team. But that's a different discussion, different podcast, different day. Reedy is special. I think they win this game.
And Reedy did have the advantage, on the picket line between the 6 of our reporters here. 5 of them went with Reedy. Justin Thomas, the lone holdover taking the Colony. So
Long Wolf.
But nevertheless, a game. I think that I feel like we've been espousing Reedy's greatness. I do think this is a matchup that is a bit closer on paper than the picket line would otherwise make it seem. Let's see. Let's look at another game that we have of note coming up. Hebron versus Arlington Martin. This is a game that I mentioned this in Monday's podcast recapping Week 1. I think this game against Martin Friday 7 p.m. at Hawk Stadium, Hebron's home opener. This will kind of be the first look at what Hebron's going to look like this season. I know that they've already played a game, but for reasons that were undisclosed by head coach Brian Brazel, they held out starting quarterback Carson Harris, rolled with their backup Alex Haltom, and he alongside Jalen Lott, Trajan Bridges, they were able to snap a 2-year funk against Plano Senior, come away with a 28-27 victory. A nice confidence boost to get a win over the Wildcats with your backup quarterback. And now Davis is going to start again. Harris, I should say. Sorry. Harris is going to start on Friday against Arlington Martin in a matchup that Martin's year in year out. Martin is right in there with your top 10, top 15 programs in the area. They are always going at least 2-3 rounds deep in the playoffs. I guess like I mentioned last week when we were talking about this matchup heading into Plano, I'm just kind of anxious to see how much Carson Harris is given right out of the gates, how much they open up the playbook for him, because
he's throwing the ball to.
It is fair to say, just from a schematic standpoint, that it's going to be a much different looking offense than it was last week.
Who they're throwing the ball to with Trajan Bridges.
That guy's special. Another guy that's special. Don't even have to hype him up. He's going to Oklahoma. Let's know he's going to be in Norman next fall. That's all you need to know about him. But I think that's going to be the difference in the games. I went lone wolf yet again. I went lone wolf last week. I'm putting my neck out there.
It's going to
playing at home.
You're going to get some losses on the picket line.
I'm the defending champ, people.
So am I.
But
so am I. I won the year before that.
But how you defend it? You former.
But this is the champions table right here. So this is the champions table podcast.
But the playing at home and the fact that Martin's always competitive, but they're lacking speed in the secondary. And with them having if they did that against a solid Plano team last week, I'm looking for them to be even more explosive because Bridges is going to put on the show. He put on the show last week when he's sitting there just on third gear and everybody's going, he's like, that's what I do.
I will say that I think Martin is a cut above Plano though this year.
Or offensively.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they can't run the ball with the same, they don't have a player as explosive as Kyron Cumbie, but I would say Martin is they probably grade out a bit higher caliber an opponent than Plano does. Arlington Martin's they're not a team that loses quite often in the regular season, and I've mentioned just Hebron breaking in a brand new starting quarterback. Not entirely sure what to make. I think that Martin's probably a bit too tall a test for that very first start, just given Martin's pedigree. Despite Hebron playing at home, Woodshed's a notoriously tough place to play. I still rolled with Martin in this one, albeit not an easy call by any stretch. Let's round this out with a look at Sachse and Euless Trinity, a nice game that we got Saturday out of the Cotton Bowl at 1:30 p.m., concluding the Cotton Bowl Prep Showcase. Sachse, a team that showed pretty well, I think, all things considered last week, albeit the game ended in heartbreaking fashion for them. But Sachse heading into their game against Capel, Capel arguably the best non-district opponent that they've played in at least 4 or 5 years, I think, since they played the Soso Jamabo-led Plano West Wolves back in 2014. And all things being considered, when you look at just the laundry list of Division I talent that they graduated from last year's team, kind of a lot of question marks surrounding Sachse, and yet there they were, leading late in the fourth quarter at Capel. Caden Davis had other plans, converted the 57-yard field goal as time expired for the 30-28 win. But nevertheless, still I think some positives to take away from this. If you're a Sachse fan, the defense looks like it's going to be once again
Murphy,
quite
what do you know about
formidable.
Sachse?
Well, I have a really close friend of mine who's a coach on that team, and he told me I was asking him, so I was like, y'all lost a lot of D1 guys, obviously Jalen Maiden at quarterback. He's like, no, we still have some D1 talent at D end and, at the linebacker position. So I'm like, the defense is still the strength. Quarterback, there's a little bit of a question mark there. They rolled out 2 different quarterbacks at times last week. So, big question mark there, but the way they lost, that just really stinks. Y'all been covering high school football much longer than I have. Have y'all ever seen anything like that? A 57-yard game?
I've seen a 54, 55-yarder in regional finals, and I was in high school, in middle school. My dad's a high school referee. It was on Lake Highlands versus Nacogdoches in 94-95, and Phil Dawson hit it. He's still kicking today in the NFL, which makes it even more absurd. Dude's still in the NFL today kicking for the 49ers.
So this Coppell kid is NFL bound then.
He's committed to Texas A&M. He's one of the better kickers that you'll find in the state.
I saw he's ranked number 4 in the nation or something like that. I don't know how.
If you're kicking 57 yards on a high school field, then that's you're a quality kicker. So Sachse trying to right the ship against a team with an entirely different stylistic identity from Capel. Euless Trinity, the first time that these two programs have ever hooked up. You know what you're going to get with Trinity. They never deter from what from their formula. It is about as imposing a run game as you're going to find in the state. Just the physicality and the size of that offensive line.
How can Nation be up in there?
Trinity, looked every bit the part of one of the better teams in the state in their opener. They crushed Waco Midway. Kind of a surprising result, 37-7. As per usual, they've got a dominant running back. Brandon Theus ran for nearly 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Trinity as a team totaled nearly 300 rushing yards overall. I'm anxious to see how Sachse handles that style of play for the very first time, because there's no other team out there where you can replicate, in preparation, you can replicate that kind of size, that kind of physicality, that kind of style of play right up until the heat of battle when you face that for the very first time. So I always kind of give, teams that are seeing Trinity for the very first time, I think it's kind of a disadvantage in that sense that you're just not familiar with what it takes to kind of hang in the trenches with a program like that. So I think I give Trinity the edge in this one.
I think what they did to Waco Midway, a team that reached the state championship game a year ago, granted it may not be the same exact team.
It's not the same team.
True, but how they beat them, they beat them by 30 points. Trinity looks good. On paper, like I said, I haven't seen them play, but I just think the way Sachse's coming off that tough loss, it's at the Cotton Bowl. Trinity looked good in week 1. I think Trinity.
What's your roommate's name?
I'll leave that up now. I'm just kidding. I'll tell you off air.
Yeah. We'll keep that off the air.
Former roommate. Still the best friend of mine.
But Brian's buddy, hey, I got your back. I went lone wolf again. I picked y'all. That's the only reason I wanted his name.
I'll make sure he listens.
Let him know. Hey, y'all got some support. I think y'all overlooking the fact that Sachse's used to be in these type games, so they're not going to get intimidated by the fact that Trinity does this and that, because that's what they've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, and they responded. So I'm
a Sachse alum, so it's not like I have anything against Sachse. I have a soft spot for Sachse.
This would be, if Sachse is able to pull it off, this would be one of the biggest wins in their history. I think it is 100%. That is, because I was saying the same thing last year against Capel. If you just look at the teams that Sachse has played non-district, they're carrying themselves like a program coming off its best season ever with the kind of teams that they scheduled this season. But when you look at just their track record, again, like I said, Capel was the best team that they had seen since Plano West back in 2014. It's been a while since they've played one of these upper echelon DFW teams.
I think that was more the confidence boost that they needed, because like a lot of those players this year, from what I looked at, they weren't playing last year, so so they know what the program is. But they haven't actually done it.
I think
but they'll be in the mix and like, hey, we should have beat this team. We went in their house and we got beat. I guess what they'll probably think is a fluke kick that gives you confidence to go into this thing against Hawker Nation, and you know what to expect too. Where Capel's a diversified offense, you know what's going to happen.
That's the thing. Everyone knows what to expect against Trinity, but very few teams can actually stop it. So that should be a terrific game to round out the week out of the Cotton Bowl on Saturday. And that's a look at some of the marquee games that we have on the docket for this week. We'll all be out covering this stuff, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll be tweeting live updates throughout the games. Gentlemen, where can our listeners follow y'all on Twitter?
I'll be at the $7 million Palace. That is MISD Stadium, watching McKinney North and Justin Northwest. Very interesting. The last 2 years that both teams have scored over 40 points. So expecting another shootout. In fact, 2 years ago was like the first game I covered for North. Quarterback had 7 touchdowns at the half, and they called the dogs off, but the state record is 10, so we could have saw a state record that night.
Did they build a special room in there for you with a bed and a nice little TV stand, mounted TV for you at that
Hey, they take care of me out there at MISD.
Brian, what else is on your coverage docket beyond the Colony and Reedy?
Tomorrow night I'll be at Lake Dallas versus Frisco Centennial.
That should be a good game.
Last year you were at that game. It was a thriller, to say the least. That one's going to be at the Star, so I'll be at the Star tonight. I'll be at the Star tomorrow.
Drinking that water.
Yeah, the weather might be a little bad, to say the least. So I'll be nice
I hope
dry.
not, man. It is too early in the season for us to be sweating out rain delays and all that mess.
Delays,
I hope we get just nothing but clear skies tomorrow.
Well, I won't have to worry about that. So that's where I'll be, and you can check all my live coverage and tweets and whatnot out at Brian Murphy _ Brian with a Y.
For my game, I'll be out at Clark Stadium in Plano, covering Plano Senior against an out of area opponent. First ever matchup. They welcome El Paso Eastwood to the fold. Should be a fun look at a team that we've never seen before. Eastwood, a very up tempo, just 4 quarters of fury style offense. They average around 80 snaps. Probably going to make me dizzy, but should be fun to watch nonetheless. I'll be tweeting out updates best I can. You can follow me along at MWelch SLM. And then once our games are done, first spot you can check out our stories, plus rapid reaction podcasts, video highlights, video interviews, you name it. We'll have it on our website, starlocalmedia.com. And that'll do it for this edition of the podcast, folks. Kendrick, Brian, appreciate y'all for tagging along. Folks, stay dry for whatever game you're headed to tomorrow night. Hey, enjoy the rest of your week, folks. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, brought to you by Performance Food Group. Performance Food Group delivers more than 150,000 food and related products to customers all across the country. If you want to get in on that process, PFG just might have a spot for you. Their McKinney office is currently hiring. Job openings include Class A CDL drivers and warehouse order selectors, as well as many other entry and part-time positions. An ideal choice for college students or people just wanting to find new careers in general. For more information, you can visit their website at pfgc.com/careers for more job openings. If you prefer to contact them by phone, you can call at 214-491-3130 for more details. Once again, that is Performance Food Group, located in McKinney at 500 Metro Park Drive.